Yo, 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 yo. This is candibknittin. I'm Candy B. I be knitting. And today I'm going to it's going to be kind of like what do you call it? A double header or a double feature. Double feature. All right, first I want to show y'all the last time we were here together. I was working on my Vertices Unite and I had just started and I had been like playing with colors and swatching, and I felt like I actually was in the form I wanted it to be. And I put a little progress keeper because I'm an official YouTuber. And so I was literally right here, and you cast on here and you start making this parallelogram. And this is section 1, of course, with colors A and B. And since then I've done section 2, finished section 2. Yep. And now I am on to section 3. So this is the Vertices Unite by Stephen West. I'm doing an all singles yarn, single ply yarn. And this blue and green is yarn Rehab is the blue, and then the green is a what do you call that? The green is from Woolen Boon, who does not dye anymore. And I really like this blue and this green together because this is not a combination I do very frequently or ever. And if y'all recall, I started off with blue and purple together, which is much more within my color comfort zone. And so I kind of broke out, did the blue and the green together, which I love. Section 1, super easy. I did make a little mistake starting out because section 1, I just read the instructions and just went by memory. And I did have just a little bit of a brain moment where I repeated the blue somewhere up here. I have 2 garter ridges of blue, and that threw off my A and B. Very long story short, the section is a little short, like 1 garter row shorter than it's supposed to be. But this is kind of my relaxed TV knitting, not thinking too hard knit. And so I was just like, it's a huge shawl. If I get off 1 stitch, I'm not going to stress it. I have other projects where I like to be a little bit more exact, but this is literally supposed to be fun, using up some stash yarn, etc., etc. Section 2, super, kind of very similar in the respect to section 1 of just very memorable directions. I think that's why this shawl is so popular, is because it's visually interesting, but the actual instructions are very easy to follow. And so then this is section 2. Section 2 is 1 garter ridge, not 1 garter ridge, 1 column shorter, because you pick up along this edge, and this edge was 1 garter row too short. I did play around with this because this purple is another yarn Rehab color, but this yellow is my hand spun. And so I'm using my hand spun as color C. And so I was supposed to pick up this edge with color C, but I got a little nervous because this is a single spun hand spun, and it's kind of thin in some places, and I just was very concerned if it had the structural integrity to be used to pick up stitches. So I reversed them, but I'm still using this as color C in spirit. And so this yellow will show up again in, I think, section 4 or something like that. And when I told you all about this yarn last time, I completely flubbed. This is Neighborhood Fiber Co. This is hand spun, but I actually just forget whatever I said because I completely jumbled up all the words. So I'm just going to say it over again. This is their Cobblestone base. The base is called Cobblestone. Last time I said the color was Cobblestone, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense looking back on it. Does this look like Cobblestone to you? The base is Cobblestone because this is their BFL in silk base. I said it was Polworth last time. This time I'm correct. It is BFL in silk. And that is why you take notes. And that is why I never take notes. And I'm like, I'm going to remember. I don't remember. So this is BFL and silk, and the actual colorway is called Del Rey, which, if you recall, Neighborhood Fiber Co. is a DC based independent dyer. They also have a retail space, and all of their colorways are inspired by the Northern Virginia DC area, and Del Rey is a neighborhood on the outskirts of DC that is kind of like kind of like a hipster type neighborhood. I don't want to offend anyone who lives in Del Rey, but it's this color being called Del Rey makes a lot more sense than it being called Cobblestone. Just put it to you that way. But the base is Cobblestone. The color is Del Rey. This is my hand spun. I spun this as a single, and it's once again just a reminder. Am I gonna be able to get this? This is my color palette for the Vertices Unite, and so this yellow, primary colors, like a rainbow type situation, except for, the purple and green obviously aren't primaries, but so this will show up again with the green in one of the sections. On to section 3. Section 3 is a little bit harder for me, not because the instructions are terribly hard, and I said this before, but Stephen West actually recently has updated the pattern, and he has a video on his YouTube about how to do section 3, and I watched that video. It's incredibly clear. The instructions are incredibly clear, but I have issues. Long story short, it involves picking up stitches and knitting the edge of section 2, picking up stitches and knitting up this edge of section 1, and so you're going back and forth picking up the stitches and attaching section 3 as you go, and it's just something I'm not dyslexic per se, but I just get very confused when it comes to things that are left-right oriented, or going into the front stitch versus going in through the back of a stitch, pulling the yarn in front versus pulling the yarn in back. And then there's, some increases and decreases here and there. So it was very slow going for me because I really had to think about, okay, what am I doing? Okay, I need to go into the front. And, sometimes my hands naturally do things that my brain is like, no, stop, read the instructions. And so I really needed the instructions right there. Eventually I got the hang of it, and now I'm away from this part. I've completed the joining part, and now this I'm actually holding the shawl upside down right now, and I just knocked a ball of yarn off on the floor. And so now this becomes the edge of the shawl, and I'm still joining section 1 to the red, and we've now finished picking up all the stitches in section 2. And so now I'm a little bit more comfortable with what the instructions are telling me to do, but I'm still like, okay, I'm on the right side, I'm on the wrong side, I need to go into the front, and then I'm picking up, and it just, like I said, it just takes me a little bit more brain power to do certain motions with my hands. I'm actually really enjoying this because the red was actually the color I was most nervous about, and I kind of just took the challenge of being like, well, I'm just gonna make a whole big block of this red color, and I love it. I kind of want like a whole sweater out of this, like just a singles yarn with this garter stitch. The other thing that is concerning to me, but I don't want to overthink this project, is that I don't know if y'all will be able to see this because this is like just red, and I don't know how well it's showing up with the light in the camera, but this side is all SSKs, slip knits. This side is all knit 2 togethers, and the knit 2 togethers are much tighter and neater, and then the slip knits, there's just like I don't know if it's my tension or just the nature of a slip knit. I need to do some reading, probably watch a couple of videos, but I was just like, for the purposes of this, let's just keep it going, don't overthink it. I think what was happening though with the slip knits, just the way my yarn was tension and the project was tension, there was just more weight on this side, and so this section was kind of pulling down. I'm not wild about it, but like I said, really don't know if there is anything I can do about that. Maybe if I was designing my own shawl, I'd figure it out. But for the purposes of this, I was like, let me just follow Stephen West's instructions. When I block it, maybe this will bloom a little bit more and it'll be less holey here. Maybe I could fix it with a crochet hook, maybe. But my other thought was, since these are knit two togethers and these are slip knits, I forget if it's on the right side or the wrong side, because like I said, I get left and right and backwards and forwards confused a lot of times. But I'm thinking maybe if I knit two together on the, yes, so these are slip knits on the wrong side. So maybe if I knit two together on the right side, it would be neater. I don't know. It'd be something I'd have to like sit around and actually swatch and play with. Y'all let me know. What, do you guys have that issue where your slip knits and your knit two togethers look that drastically different? I am more of a fan of a knit two together because I think in general it does come out neater. I think it's because also I kind of have a hesitation with the slip knit. The knit two together, by nature of how your needles are coming together, I'm tightening a little bit extra, and the slip knit, I'm like literally going into the stitch and opening it up. Yarn is so interesting. Knitting theory is really interesting to me. But yeah, I would like to spend some time. I do have the Vogue knitting book, so maybe there's a chapter on decreases and I can read about what the different decreases look like. Kind of like, a yarn over as an increase is a little bit more lacy than like a make one right is a little bit more invisible. But like I said, don't want to overthink it. It's going to be a shawl. Once it blocks, hopefully the yarn blooms. That was the other thing I was going to say about overthinking. On this piece, using my hand spun, I was trying to be very thoughtful about the thickness. And so there were areas where I broke up my hand spun and took out parts that I felt were significantly thinner than this Rehab yarn I was using. I don't know if I did it everywhere. There were places where I was like, oh, this is fine. And I was like looking at the fabric. And so what I'm going to do probably is finish the shawl, weave in my ends, block it, and see if my hand spun blooms and how it blooms compared to the Rehab yarn. And what I might do is I have the pieces that I like broke off, and I might duplicate stitch if it's looking thin. But right now it's like, it seemed like it was bothering me a lot as I was knitting, but I'm not really seeing a place right now that I can show you where it looks significantly thinner. And I'm just kind of nervous. And I stopped doing that because I was looking at it and I was like, actually, this singles is actually pretty strong. Like I for some reason I thought I was just going to start knitting with my hand spun and I was just going to start falling apart because it is single ply, but I didn't have that issue at all. And it actually was kind of hard to break because I think what happens is the thinner it got, the thin places were places where I put a lot of twist in it, and the twist makes it a little bit stronger. So really the thicker pieces might be weaker than the thinner pieces. But for uniformity's sake, I do want to block it and just make sure that I don't have any like super, super thin, like holy places. That's what I don't want. But it doesn't, looking at it now, I'm trying to find a spot. It doesn't look super holy anywhere, especially with, I like garter stitch because it does have like that textural fluffiness to it. And so I don't want it to be thin. And I think garter, like, let me get my thoughts together. I think garter stitch looks better at a tighter gauge. Let me put it to you that way. And so I don't want it to be super holy, and I don't want it to get like, I'm wearing it as a shawl and I don't want to like be pulling on the shawl and wrapping it around myself and then, creating holes or wear and tear. But I'm actually, looking at this, I'm actually quite happy with it, but I'm going to block it, see how it blocks, and then go back in and see if there's places I want to kind of, I guess, reinforce it, if you will. But I think, or I hope, it's going to bloom out nicely, and then I'm going to be wearing it, rubbing up against the car seat, rubbing up against my office chair and things like this. Is mostly going to be for when I'm in the office and I'm chilly, and so no one's really gonna probably even see this part, but I'm sure y'all all know when you're working on something, you're just like, my brain kind of zeroes in on every little thing that I could be doing wrong. And that's why I'm saying so many things that I'm feeling that are like not perfect, but I'm just going to work through them, because I feel like that's just as much a worthwhile exercise as it is to, work on my knitting. I do have projects where I'm like, I want this to be perfect, and I want this to be, technically accurate, because I'm learning a certain technique. And so this is supposed to be my fun project. And so I don't want to take too much fun out of my fun project. I shouldn't say fun. It's all fun. It's all fun, but it's a different type of fun. For a different type of mood. Like, I need to be able to watch TV and knit. So if I'm watching TV and I'm enjoying myself and I'm having a good time, I'm not going to sweat it if all of a sudden I'm one stitch short for some reason. Say yes, don't stress. This is on size 4 needles, by the way. I do like a fingering weight shawl on like a size 5, but because this is garter stitch and I like that kind of, that squishiness of the garter, I would not go too big on the needle. So that's that. The second thing I wanted to talk to y'all about, revisiting my beginning of 2024 goals I set for myself. One of my goals was to kind of reorganize my yarn space. And recently, up until very recently, I've had one of those like cube shelves. It's like 3x3 cube shelves. Literally, it's probably the first piece of furniture me and Mr. Rulud bought when we moved in together like 15 years ago at this point. So it has been through a lot. It literally, you tap it and it just sways in the breeze. Like, it is, I am amazed it has survived so many moves. But I'm ready to let go of literally my college furniture. I do want to create a space that is intentional and dedicated to my crafting, and this has been a shelving unit we've put books on. We've put it in the children's room. It's been here, it's been there, and I honestly don't think it's going to survive much longer. Like, literally every single time I move it, I have to like kind of like, is it going to make it back into the spot that I had it in? Because also having a yarn room, I like to vacuum consistently. I like to pull things out, make sure there's nothing hiding, making sure there's no dust. And so that was the situation. I also have a couple of really big 50-gallon tubs, which are helpful, but not ideal. So I have the shelf. I like the shelf because I can see my yarn, but the shelf, first of all, isn't my favorite. Especially when you're talking about 100% wool yarn, you don't necessarily want it exposed to the elements. The buckets are nice because they protect the yarn, but then I can't see what I have, and sometimes I legitimately forget what I have. And so I try to create this system where I've been rotating things into the cubes, out of the buckets. Also, the buckets are so big and so deep, pulling out skeins of yarn, I tend to tangle things. If it's in a cake, it gets tangled. If it's in a skein, sometimes the skein gets unwound. They have the paper label around them. It's just not been functional. And so I'm trying this year to get my space functional. And so I want to show y'all something I recently purchased. I got a bunch of these. They're marketed as shoe boxes, like you would put a pair of shoes in these to keep them protected from the elements. I got them from Amazon, but you can get them from Target or Aldi or wherever your favorite plastic crap is sold. I think it's Iris brand is the brand, or if you live in a different country. But I got these because they're smaller and they're clear, so I can see what I got, and I can have it kind of like in bite-sized chunks. and kind of organize things the way my brain works, and also protect my yarn from the elements. And so I actually recently got new shelving. Well, it's a whole new setup in my crafting room. I'll try to take pictures for Instagram at some point, or maybe I'll do a video in my crafting room. I don't know. But it's still a mess now because I have a new crafting table and I got the old stuff in there. And I have my crafting room is also my work from home office. It's also where Santa sets up during the holidays. It's also where we dry our clothes. It's also it's everything. It's our dumping ground of our house, basically. So I got this, so now I can organize by color, maybe, or I got, a little system going. These are all my mix-ins when I do my drum carding, which is another goal I had this year, was to use my drum carder more. And so I have my stellina, I have some little bits of fiber, I have some random singles. Whenever I ply my hand spun and I have a little bit left over, it goes in here. I've got some acrylic yarn that I'm going to cut up into neps. I've got samples of fleeces that I've processed. I've got a ton of these. So now, instead of being in a random Ziploc bag that's shoved into a giant thing, whenever I'm ready to drum card or do a random kind of more crafty thing, I got it here. I can organize by dyer. This is all my 29 Bridges skeins all in one go, and I find that these this size can fit about 6 skeins of yarn. This is 5 29 Bridges, and when they're in there, you can see every bit of yarn that's in there. So 6 100-gram skeins. There's 5 in here right now. I know I can't count. And then this is my bullet skeins of yarn, of sock yarn. And so right now there's 9 bullet skeins in here, but I probably could fit 10 all together. Just to give you an idea, if you wanted to purchase something like this, like, what you could fit in it. I got 20 all together, and I'm not surprised all my yarn does not fit into all of them, but I think I'm moving in the right direction. All of my leftover sock yarn. So one of these 50-gram skeins will make 1 pair of shorty socks. And if I want to make them any longer, I have to do contrasting heels, toes, cuffs. And so now I have a whole thing where I can see all the colors I have for contrasting heels, toes, cuffs. So I can just look at this and be like, oh, I got that. Okay, I'll use that. And so I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'm on the right track as far as getting things cleaned up, getting things organized, getting things into a place where it's not that I have a lot of yarn, I'm not gonna lie, but it's not the amount that stresses me out, it's the way it's organized and just not being able to find things sometimes, and the space that it's in. I feel like if I had, everyone wishes, if I had like a she shed or one of those, like storefront type, houses, if I had like a 16-bedroom mansion, of course, then I would have more yarn in my yarn, what is Tori spelling? Candy spelling, her wrapping paper attic. I would feel a little differently about it, but because I have a certain amount of space, I have a certain amount of resources at my disposal, and I have a certain amount of, mental, what do you call that? Bandwidth, it has to be organized in a certain way. And so hopefully this system and my new table, I'm able to kind of wrap my head around things. And I think if things are well organized, I'm going to be more into using the things that I have and be able to see them and be able to plan projects around them. And so that's my ultimate goal. But y'all tell me, how do y'all organize your yarn? Do you have, or do you just buy for the project, throw all the scraps in the trash, and then, go to the store and then buy the exact amount of yarn you need for the next project? Do you, I should have brought I have a huge jar of scraps. I just went through those and kind of cleaned those up a little bit. I also have, 2 young children, so yarn gets used for all kinds of crafts and things like that, not just knitting. But also, and then I'll probably also use those scraps to like stuff projects for waste yarn, things like that. And so I do like to have a certain amount of things on hand. If like I said, if I need to put things on waste yarn, I need leaders for when I'm spinning and things like that. But I am very excited about, I would like it if I can, with this new table setup I have, it's got shelves underneath the table. So hopefully I can fit like all of my acrylic into the shelves and then fit all of my wool into the plastic, small clear plastic. And then the big bins can be for, like, if I have a big fleece, or if I have like, I have my blocking mats, and my blocking mats are like literally like sitting on the floor right now. And so it'd be nice if I could just put them in one of the big plastic bins and, put that away. But right now, having a big plastic bin full of balls like this, that's not really helpful. And so that's also it too, is like not just the size of the space, but making the space make sense and work together really well. I think I'll be a lot happier. But I do need to play around with it, do need to do some cleaning, do some reorganizing, and also figure out where my work desk is going to go for my full-time job, because without my full-time job, I can't buy the yarn. I think I'm going to leave it there. Let me know in the comments what y'all have been working on. Let me know how you organize your yarn, what some of your storage solutions are, or even like how you have your craft room laid out. Like, do you have a side for spinning? Do you have a side for knitting? Are you like me, where your space, your room the whole family ends up just throwing their crap in your room? Let me know. Once again, I am Candy Bee. This has been candibknittin. You can also hit me up on the Instagram at Rulude, or send me an email, candibknittin@gmail.com. Until next time, peace.